This is Behind the Headlines, with behind-the-scenes analysis on issues affecting Pennsylvanians, sponsored by the Susquehanna Valley Center for Public Policy. Now, here's your host.
Hi, from Philadelphia to Erie and from Scranton to Pittsburgh, it's Behind the Headlines. I'm Charlie Greenewalt, Senior Fellow of the Susquehanna Valley Center for Public Policy, and I'm joined as usual by my co-host, Maura Donnelly. Hi, Maura.
Hello, Charlie.
I'm so glad to be back with you.
Yes.
We're back in the regular studios.
We are, for the first time in a year and a half, year and a couple months.
Yeah, it feels wonderful to be back.
It does. It's very nice. I hope it continues.
And we're going to kick off our reunion with the studio with a great show today. And we want to start with one of the most important subjects confronting the Commonwealth, which of course is education. And we want to talk about higher education, and to do that we have Jamie Martin with us. Jamie, you are the president of APSCUF, the union of faculty in the 14 state universities. We welcome you back. You've been a guest before. And there's been so much going on in higher education in Pennsylvania, and we want to try to bring our audience up to date with it. Could you talk about first, if we could start out, this whole idea by the state system and proposal to realign the 14 universities? Could you talk about that and sort of lay that out for our viewing public?
Absolutely, and it is great to be back in the studio and see you both in person in three dimensions.
Yes.
Thank you.
Sure, and so the process to consolidate 6 of our universities and move those into 2 separate new universities began last fall, but in July the Board of Governors voted to move that forward. And so at this point, the process is underway to consolidate Bloomsburg, Lock Haven, and Mansfield in the northern tier, and California, Clarion, and Edinburgh in the western part of the Commonwealth. But as I keep saying, this is going to be a long road ahead. The vote by the board in July was the first step of many, and we still have a lot of unanswered questions about accreditation, questions about the NCAA decision to allow sports or athletic teams at all 6 campuses, questions about curriculum, and a lot of questions about exactly how this will look at the end of the day. And so this should be an iterative process, and as we get answers to some of these questions, there could be modifications to the original plan or changes to it. So we're carefully watching, and as you would recognize, Charlie, you also have a collective bargaining agreement. And so we've got to work through that process and determine how that will look whenever we have a new university that's 3 campuses, but 1 president, 1 accreditation, those kinds of issues.
So I know that your organization has been looking for a guide for anybody on this. It sounds like from what you just said that does not exist yet. Are they going to be doing that? I mean, are they at least talking about answering some of your concerns, trying to outline what the process is going to be going forward?
Well, I'm hoping now that vote took place that we're going to see a roadmap.
Good.
Right? That we're going to see what are the metrics, what's the timeline, and what are going to be the benchmarks that we have to pass or to hit for this to move forward. We had some guidance from other states that have tried this. In the state of Georgia, they consolidated a number of universities, and they had some significant issues with accreditation. In some cases, they weren't permitted to have athletic teams on multiple campuses. So there are some lessons we could learn from that, but I guess the devil will be in the details as we're moving forward, but I certainly hope to see a roadmap soon.
Well, Jamie, these universities have always been economic generators for the areas that they're located in, and some of the areas, such as the area around Mansfield, certainly depend upon the university for their economic vitality. Has the state system considered the economic role of the universities, and what contingencies are being made in regard to that?
They've done an economic impact study, and that seemed to suggest that there wouldn't be much of an impact. There were other studies done that suggested there could be a negative impact on those communities. The state system has said this is supposed to expand opportunities for students, and we're still waiting to understand how that will occur. So for example, you're talking about Mansfield, Charlie. So if I'm a student at Mansfield and I want to complete my degree in a field in business, Will I be able to do that at Mansfield for my 4 years, or will I have to transfer to another university? Will I have to take some number of my courses online? So not only the economic impact that we're watching, but also the impact on our students that we're always most concerned about. What will their academic life look like as they're moving into this new U?
Tell us a little bit about this vote that occurred in July. Was it unanimous? Was there discussion? Do you have any allies? Tell us a little bit about how that went.
So leading up to that vote in July, there were a number of forums that were available for faculty, students, community members to participate in. APSCUF had a number of those as well. The comments leading up to that were overwhelmingly negative, in opposition to consolidation, and especially because there are so many unanswered questions. But they moved forward anyways. I think Governor Wolf supported this. It was a unanimous vote, but we were happy to hear that they were talking about this as an iterative process, that this is just one step.
This wasn't the final.
Not the final step.
That is good news.
What has been the union's position on this thus far? Have you been able to take a position, or are you waiting to see how it fleshes out, or are you taking positions all along the way, Jamie?
We didn't take a position until we saw the plan.
Okay.
And then when we saw the plan and saw that there were pieces missing, then what we were asking for was at least a delay in the vote until we could get some of those questions answered. And that would have been our preference.
What was the answer why they didn't delay the vote?
They didn't, I don't know that they had a real answer about why they didn't delay the vote.
What's the rush?
That was our question. That was our question. What is the rush? Until we know exactly how this will impact students, especially, our young people that are going to those campuses, we wanted to know how are they going to be impacted. Those are the kinds of questions I think when we get answers, I'm hoping there could be modifications to this plan. Once we find out about accreditation, there could be modifications. Once we hear about the NCAA and their decisions. So there were a lot of people, some on the Board of Governors, that had those questions as well. And I think that as those become clearer, we may see some changes to the plan, or at least the timeline of this particular process as they've outlined it so far.
Well, let's shift gears a little bit and talk about the ever-present mask mandates in the state-owned universities. The Delta variant, of course, is running rampant, and school districts, for undergrad or high school, nobody knows what to do. What are the state-owned universities going to do?
We were happy to find out that all 14, and we had advocated for this strongly through our meet and discuss processes, that there should be, at the very least, a mask mandate. And so we're happy to see that all 14 universities have done that.
Oh, good.
So students, faculty, staff will be obligated to wear masks in indoor spaces, in classrooms, and any buildings. In addition, some universities are doing surveillance testing. So for students who are not vaccinated, they will be doing random testing, or maybe more regular testing of those individuals moving through the semester. We would certainly support and advocate for a vaccine mandate.
Are they going to have one?
As of right now, the state system is saying that it would require a change in legislation.
Oh.
So there's a law that requires meningitis vaccinations. The state system's position is that that law would have to be amended to include a COVID vaccination mandate.
Any sense of whether that's going to happen?
If I could just be blunt, given that the General Assembly had passed a ban on mask mandates, I don't foresee them deciding to mandate a vaccination. But again, we'll continue to advocate. I think that is the safest way for people to be back in the classrooms and feel as if they're not going to become infected or have even breakthrough infections.
Jamie, are all the universities going to use the same measures to stay abreast of how what COVID is doing on those campuses, or are they all going to be using different measures to track COVID cases? How does the state system stay on top of this? How do the individual universities stay on top of this?
This has been so fluid. You know, I mean, truly, we're at a place where there were not going to be mask mandates. Then we moved towards those. On some campuses, classes haven't even begun. I know Westchester starts next week. We're in the very first week of the semester for many others. I believe they're still going to have a COVID dashboard that would report the number of cases on each campus. But I truly don't know to what extent they'll be monitoring that and reporting. Most are going to have vaccination clinics or vaccination available, have testing on campuses, but it's been so fluid and happening so rapidly that we're trying to monitor that as well.
It can't really be just the campus, too. It's got to be the whole community and what's happening outside the gates of the schools, because those students are going to be moving about and, you know, off campus and doing things.
Absolutely, Martin. And not only that, you have students coming to our universities from all over the Commonwealth and from out of state. And so I think each of our 67 counties is now seen as a high transmission. They've been identified as that. And so it doesn't matter where the university is located. It's also students coming in from other areas and being in the community. So I have grave concerns, just like I did last year. We were all hopeful we had kind of crossed over that rocky mountain and got to a place we'd be back in class without masks, and here we are again.
But has your organization, have you informed the state system itself and informed the administration that you will support a vaccine mandate?
Yes, as recently as today.
Oh,
Yes,
Oh,
we would
that's
certainly
very timely.
We would certainly support that.
Good.
Again, I'm hopeful that would be the case. So we'll await the decision of the state system or of the General Assembly.
well, as if those two issues aren't enough going on, what else are you working on right now?
We're always working on issues related to funding for public higher education. So right now the legislature is not in session, but as soon as they are back, we will be either moving through the halls up there or doing this virtually again, depending on what's happening. Student debt issues are always at the forefront of what we're working on as well. So we have a lot going on.
You do.
Over the last, it seems like it's been constant, but certainly funding is going to be at the forefront as we're moving into the fall.
Well, thank you very much for being with us, Jamie, and we look forward to having you back soon to give us an update on these subjects, and good luck in the new academic year.
Thank you so much.
Okay. We'll be back right after this. Stay with us.
Behind the Headlines is brought to you as a public service by the Pennsylvania State Association of Township Supervisors, the largest, most influential municipal association in the Commonwealth. Since 1921, PSATS has been preserving and strengthening township government and securing greater visibility and involvement for townships in the state and federal political arenas. Covering 95% of Pennsylvania's land mass, townships represent 5.5 million residents, more than any other type of political subdivision in Pennsylvania. Additional underwriting provided by the Worrell Corporation Foundation, based in Carlisle, Pennsylvania, by the Edward H. and Jeannie Arnold Foundation, and by the Pennsylvania Manufacturers Association. Business in Pennsylvania is our business. Behind the Headlines is also supported as a public service by the Pennsylvania Highway Information Association, the go-to source to learn about transportation projects and issues. Visit pahighwayinfo.org.
Hi, welcome back to Behind the Headlines. On the second segment of our show, we're going to shift gears and we're going to go to transportation, and we also have a different co-host for this segment. We're joined by Jerry Strickmatter. Jerry, welcome to the show.
Oh, thanks, Charlie. I'm
course,
happy to be here.
Jerry,
you're
a former House member from the Pennsylvania House of Representatives, representing Lancaster County, and now you are a board member of the Susquehanna Valley Center as well.
Yeah,
so we're happy to have you with us again.
Thank you for the invitation.
Oh, you're welcome. And we're going to tackle transportation again. Education and transportation are just two of the most important issues always facing the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. And again, we're fortunate enough to have with us Bob Latham, who's the Executive Vice President of the Associated Pennsylvania Constructors. Bob, welcome back to the show.
Charlie and Jerry, good to be with you,
Welcome,
as always.
It's good to have you. Bob, I want to start out with the what's going on in Washington, because apparently there's a lot of legislation that's being considered in Washington right now that would have a huge impact on Pennsylvania. And perhaps the most important thing that's going on right now is this infrastructure bill that's before the Senate, the U.S. Senate. I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about this. What is it? What does it consist of? And how would it help Pennsylvania?
Certainly. There's actually infrastructures on two tracks. There's a general infrastructure bill that has broadband cable and some other things involved in it. They're very, very important. And then there's the transportation piece of this, which is, of course, of interest to us and our constituency. And that is every 5 years, what is known as the Surface Transportation Act has to be what they call reauthorized. So they've got that sort of mixed in with under this broad-based category of infrastructure bill, and that's what we're kind of focused in on here because it's very, very important to Pennsylvania. We've been struggling a little bit over the last several years with our transportation capital program. You and Jerry will recall. A number of years ago, we passed a comprehensive transportation bill here in Pennsylvania, known as Act 89, really boosted our investment in making bridges safer, roadways safer, increasing the convenience of travel around the Commonwealth. That was a truly bipartisan bill, almost 8 years ago now, so it was quite some time ago. But in the last several years, we've kind of slid down, and our funding's been down, or our capital investment program in highways has been down about 20%. So the important thing to know is that if Congress passes this infrastructure bill, it'll get us back up to where we were, maybe 5-6 years ago. It's important to understand that while this is very important to Pennsylvania and all the other states in the country, it's not a panacea. It doesn't mean we're awash in cash, but it is a very important piece for the highway program. Let me just throw a couple of numbers at you. Right now we're spending about $2 billion a year, which sounds like a lot of money, but that's less money than we were spending before we passed this bill 8 years ago. This congressional bill would increase that by about 20%, or about $500 million a year in the actual construction program. So there's what they call a core spending for highways, and then there's a special bridge program, and Pennsylvania would do well under both of them. That'd be very helpful. It's very important that we get this passed right now. The Senate has passed it. It's in the House of Representatives. House of Representatives really needs to act on it, and we're very hopeful that our House members, congressional delegation from Pennsylvania, will be supportive of the bill.
Yeah, and thankfully, Pennsylvania acted in a great way, bipartisan way. Through different administrations,
right.
About highways and about making the roads safer, bridges safer. When the kids go off to school, we want to make sure that they get home safely.
Yeah.
Where we were weight restricting, a lot of critical areas, and so luckily Pennsylvania did what was right before, and we were ready for Washington to do what they've always done since the Eisenhower years, was to to do what they do, and they didn't. So we were ready. So luckily we're ready now too.
Right.
So hopefully our delegation will see that this will be a follow through for what we did at the state level, at the federal level.
Right. And I know a lot of viewers, and I kind of agree sometimes too. You look at government spending, and now there's talk about trillions here and trillions there, and your head starts to spin and say, well, where is this all going, and what do we get out of this just massive spending? Well, one of the things about transportation is that you can see results. So when we passed that bill, we had 6,000 bad bridges in Pennsylvania. We now have 3. That's 1,000. That sounds like a lot, but that's quite a decrease in the number of bad bridges. In 2018, we had the lowest number of highway fatalities in the history of the statistic. Now it's crept up a little bit during the pandemic, but still, that investment in safer roads and safer bridges has really borne out in saving lives and making things more convenient to get around. So you can see tangible results. When you spend $1 billion on road construction, you employ 15,000 people, 13 to 15,000 new jobs. So this level of spending or this level of funding that we would get from this congressional bill would be, that would create about 8,000 jobs here in Pennsylvania to allow us to continue on that path of making our bridges safer, reduce fatalities as well. So it's very, very important, and we're going to see results from this. It's not just poof money into the atmosphere. Now, one of the things to remember is that having said all that, it doesn't solve all the problems, all the funding problems and things that we need to look at, down the road. We have a funding system based on fuel consumption, and we're seeing more and more cars that are going electric. So we're going to need to replace the gas tax at some point down the road. The governor created a Transportation Revenue Options Commission that gave a report in July on a number of things.
Well, we wanted to ask you about that
Sure.
report, and what did that report give us?
Sure,
what
there was
did
a
that report have to say?
Well, I was on the commission, and the short of it is, in the long run, we have to replace the gas tax with something, probably a user fee based on miles driven. But
Is
that is
a belief that the electric car is really going to be that pervasive and replace the gasoline-powered car in the future, Bob?
Yeah, I do.
Already
Already
we're
you're
there.
seeing major manufacturers committing to a huge percentage of their output here over the next 5 years that will be all electric. There's also talk of hydrogen and other non-diesel or gasoline-powered cars. So it is going to be a large portion of the fleet, and even those gasoline-powered cars are more and more fuel efficient. So as there's less consumption, there's less tax revenue as well. So we have to look at a way to replace that. That being said, it's not going to happen in the next 2 to 5 years. That's a 10-year at least situation. So we have some stopgap things we need to do. We've been on this program. We've talked about taking the money that's now going from the gas tax to fund the state police and funding the state police with something else. That would be very important. A fair electric vehicle fee would be fair. Electric vehicle don't really pay anything now. They pay a nominal registration fee and no gas tax. So something along that line. And then also the commission recommended looking at sort of this fee for goods delivered. We're in this delivery economy now. This have everything sent to your home economy. That's creating tremendous stress on the transportation system. Look at all the distribution centers up and down our interstate highways. So looking at that as a possibility as well. So those are things that might have to be explored at the state level.
That's very novel, a delivery fee. So those particular companies would pay something above and beyond their normal gas.
Right,
taxes.
or you would, when you order something through Amazon, or if something comes via Federal Express to your house, there would be a fee on it. It's kind of like a utility fee that you pay now. And actually, right now there is a federal excise tax on freight shipped by air. So it's really not a new concept.
Well, Jerry, what do you think? Would Amazon and UPS line up against such a charge, Jerry?
Well, I look at it, I don't care really too much right now on that because like he's saying, it's 10 years away. What I'm worried about is, and he can explain to us now, where are the improvements going to be? So our viewers looking across the Commonwealth, where do you plan if we can actually get back to where we were supposed to be? What's been delayed, and what can people across the Commonwealth expect to see?
I think that the first thing you can expect to see, and again, we're going back to this congressional bill and the importance that it passes, because it's going to stabilize things while here at the state level we start to talk about some of the things that we just talked about. You're going to see improvements on the ride on the interstates. Right now, our interstates are still in pretty bad shape, and that's one of the things that we could talk about for hours. Is the concept that the federal, the interstates were created by Senator Gore and President Eisenhower back in the 50s. Talk about bipartisan, but it was a mostly federally driven program, and then this asset was handed over to the states and said, now you keep it up. And that was 70, 80 years ago. So, and these things are starting to fall apart, and they're very expensive to replace. Projects that 40 years ago cost $60 million, cost $600 million now. So you're going to see improvement of the pavement there. You're going to see more and more safer bridges, less chance of weight restrictions that has a bad impact on our farming community, that has a bad impact on our manufacturing community. So it'd be very, very helpful to the economy, not just construction jobs, but impact on our manufacturing businesses and on our agricultural businesses as well. So, and again, make it safer to get around here in the Commonwealth. So it's very, very important that our congressional delegation sign on. Senator Casey voted yes, Senator Toomey voted no, but now it's in the hands of the House, and hopefully our House delegation will support it.
And so, in the last 2 minutes,
Sure.
how these segments go so quickly. What should our viewers be doing, like with our congressional delegation and also with the transportation leaders in the state? When they see them, what should they be saying?
Well, I think that all transportation is local. So look around your town and say, what has to be done in my town? A lot of what we did with Act 89 was fix minor safety things, put in new signals, put in new turning lanes, put in climbing lanes. Everybody knows what's going on in their town and their location, and say, this is, we really need this, and ask their legislator, are you voting in order to make sure that this situation gets fixed? I'm sure everybody can think of that. So that would be the message that I think people need to give to their policymakers is we need safer roads, we need more convenient roads to get around, and particularly in our town, and ask them, what are you doing to make sure that that's happening? If you're voting no on something, why are you doing that, and how is that going to make this situation better? And
if they have specific questions, give your website again.
Sure,
we'll put it up on the screen.
It's www.paconstructors.org or pahighwayinfo.org. A lot of information there. We'd be happy to. I'm sure you'll find what you need.
Okay, well, Bob, we want to thank you very much for being with us today. Jerry, I want to thank you for sitting in as well. And we look forward to seeing what's going to happen with this bill now that it's up for consideration in the Congress. I think you've thrown a lot of light on it for our viewers. So we'll see you next time, and we'll be back with a new episode of Behind the Headlines.